Hi, I'm Andrew Cochran. Join me Sundays at 9 on CBC for Switchback.
Tonight, Good Rockin' takes a look at the making of the Northern Lights recording, also the Alan Parsons Project, Kim Carnes, Peter Wolf, and the J. Giles Band, Corey Hart, Chicago, Dee Snider and Twisted Sister, Los Lobos, Survivor, Platinum Blonde, and John Waite, a police medley, and an interview with Luba, a trivia question from Corey Hart. Also, Rock Wars from Windsor and Platinum Blonde trivia winners. All that and much more on Good Rockin' Tonight. Hi, how you doing? I'm Terry David Mulligan. This is Good Rockin' Tonight, Canada's network music show. We come to you from Vancouver, where summer has already started and people are sunning themselves on the beaches. No, I'm just kidding. A little weather joke there, but it really is warming up out here. Have a very special feature tonight. Right after Rock Wars from Windsor, we'll sit and talk with Bruce Allen and David Foster, who, together with a team of industry people, brought off one of Canada's great musical achievements, Northern Lights, and the song Tears Are Not Enough. The song is written and sung by Canada's stars to help feed the starving people of Ethiopia. Foster wrote the tune while Bruce brought the talent and the production together. It is a fascinating story, and for those of you who missed seeing him here last night, Huey Lewis will drop by to talk about the American project, We Are the World. Band-Aid and Do They Know It's Christmas? I'm Terry David Mulligan, and welcome to part 2 of Good Rockin' Tonight. You know, much has already been said about the many projects underway around the world in raising funds to end the suffering of millions in Africa, but especially Ethiopia, where drought has gone on for 10 years with no end in sight. Last Christmas, as you know, Bob Geldof gathered together those British stars to sing for a record which would go on to make millions for famine relief. Geldof then issued challenges to other countries to do likewise. Quincy Jones, Lionel Richie, and Michael Jackson hear the message in Los Angeles, and they, in a staggering American lineup, record We Are the World.
The title, We Are the World, written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie. The single and an album are to be released in March.
What I think is so courageous is that all of these wonderful artists, I'm talking about legends, to come and join us to save people's lives. There are people dying, and they're calling out for help.
It's just a commitment to do whatever needs to be done.
We have here in the studio Bruce Allen, Huey Lewis, David Foster, Mulligan. We want to talk, if we can, while we have you for just a couple of minutes here, because I know you have to go, I want to talk about the recording of USA for Africa and what it was like in that studio.
It was amazing. I mean, I'm sure it was amazing for you guys too, but in ours, the only people they left in the studio were the musicians themselves, and there was no, managers or girlfriends or wives or, husbands or anything, and it was just, so in the breaks were as interesting as making the record. You know, we'd have breaks and you'd be talking to Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson and Ray Charles is jamming on the piano, and it was wild. I think Paul Simon really said it best. He said, if a bomb drops in this place tonight, John Denver's back on top. Sorry, John, just a little joke.
The British both shamed and inspired American entertainers to give of themselves. They called the group United Support of Artists for Africa and assembled, semi-secretly, 45 strong to record in an all-night session on Monday. Everyone came, from Ray Charles and Kenny Rogers to Bruce Springsteen. As they entered the studio, producer Quincy Jones ordered,
"Check your ego at the door," and everybody did.
Did you hear the tune before you went in?
Yeah, I heard it that night, actually, yeah. They actually had tapes made up, but we didn't have a tape for some reason. We heard it that night as we went.
I didn't really have a chance to ask the artists that were involved with ours, but maybe you could tell me as an artist singing there, with all the other artists around, did it make you sing better, do you think? I mean, like, was everybody just like, God, I gotta do better than the last guy, that kind of deal, or?
It was wild, but I mean, you know, you didn't have any trouble hitting the notes. It was going sharp was a problem, you know?
Oh, yeah, right, right, because everybody was so,
well,
right?
Really?
You're two-tone sharp, come down a little.
They set up the microphones in a circle?
They set, ours, we had, I think it was 12 people, and they set up 6 microphones and 2 on each microphone. Yeah. And it went Stevie Wonder, Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder, Paul Simon, Kenny Rogers, James Ingram, Tina Turner, Billy Joel, Dionne Warwick, Willie Nelson, Al Jarreau, Bruce Springsteen, Kenny Loggins, Steve Perry, Daryl Hall, Michael Jackson, me.
Stop! A bunch of no-names.
Yeah. Cyndi Lauper and Kim Carnes.
Isn't that something?
And it was just wild. We, you know, we had to get around the piano and learn the song, and it was magnificent. Stevie played it on piano, and Lionel passed out parts. It was fantastic.
Unbelievable. Something you'll never forget, and very powerful to be in the room.
And you know what? I think it might be a hit.
Today, the producers voiced hopes that record sales could result in as much as $200 million in African relief. Other industry sources said $40 million would be a more realistic goal.
We want to talk about Northern Lights, Tears Are Not Enough. The story really, I think, has been told that the music came out of you, the lyrics from Adams and Valance, and of course the line from Haydn and Rock from the Payolas, Tears Are Not Enough. But I want to start with a phone call from Quincy Jones.
Okay, we'll back it up to there. Like I said before, he called, and the minute I heard his voice, I knew what was up. You know, they've just finished this extravaganza down in the States with every name that ever was, and I've heard the piece of music, and it's wonderful. And he said, Foz, you got to continue up in Canada. And so I hung up, and my first call, of course, was to Bruce Allen, because Bruce is at the top of the heap as far as managers in this country, and he knows everybody, and anybody that he doesn't know, he can get to know in about 2 minutes. So we talked for about 10 minutes. The first couple of minutes of our conversation was interesting.
We'll leave it at that.
Right, but he loved the idea of the spirit of the thing right from the beginning. There was just a couple of obstacles to overcome, but it literally, from there, I called you because I wanted you to be involved right from the get, because you and I are such friends, and I know that you know a lot of people and you could be helpful in organizing this thing. And then we got Lou Blair involved, and then Bruce's whole office has been tense for the last 12 days. It's been nothing but Tears Are Not Enough.
It was very unreal to see all 50 standing there. When you see the finished product, you'll know what I mean. There's a very, very strong Canadian identity to this. I don't know, it was very magical when we all started singing. You know, there's this, everyone is very atypically themselves on this record, and the voices are instantly identifiable, and it's a very, very beautiful patchwork quilt of 20 years of Canadian musical history, and brought together beautifully by David.
I remember one particular moment. I was sitting on the bench, on the Group W bench with Joni Mitchell, just gaffing about one thing or another, and Jane Siberry came up and sat down and just started asking Joni a lot of real metaphysical questions. And suddenly there was this feeling like it was like sort of Jane was like looking at Joni, like Joni was sort of like Mum. You know, I mean, I don't mean anything about age, but it was just this sort of strange cross-generational cross-pollination among the artists that were there. It was like some of the newer people like actually idolized some of the older people, and some of the older people were wondering what the hell was going on. But there's this tremendous kind of cross-fertilization, you know.
You took him a piano track, something like that?
Took
a tune?
To who?
The actual melody to Bruce and...
Oh, actually, no. I ran into Jim Valance, Brian Adams' writing partner, at the studio that same day, and the song had already started coming to me, and I said, gee, you know, would you contribute your studio to demo the song? And he says, yeah, great. And then Adams got in from L.A. that next day when we were demoing and said, what are you doing? And we told him what we were doing. He said, I want to come over and listen. And he came over, and we were having dinner, and they were writing the lyrics, and bang, by Sunday morning, we had this great, great song.
It is.
It really is.
It's a great tune. What problems immediately after he had gone 2 falls out of 3 with you. What were the immediate problems you thought?
Well, the only problem is who's available. That's the first problem. And the amazing thing was is that everybody was available or could make themselves available. Everybody thinks what a massive undertaking it was, and it probably would be a massive undertaking if there was fighting and struggling. But we didn't have to twist anybody's arm, whether it was Neil Young or Mike Reno or Gordon Lightfoot, Anne Murray, Paul Anka, anybody. Nobody gave us any problems, Terry. I mean, Paul couldn't make it then because he lost his voice, but that he wanted to be there. He really wanted to be there, and he was very upset that he wasn't. So all it was after that was just going to Air Canada and going to Coca-Cola and going to companies like this to chip in some money, because the airfares and that were a lot for people to move around, and Air Canada came through like that. CPI put the video together, Donald K. Donald dug up some corporate money, and it was done in 4 days, basically.
The true test came when we went to do the hockey players, and the reason why I wanted to have the hockey players on, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but to me, this is Canada. This is not just singers getting together. I wanted to expand it and show just the whole country banding together for this worthwhile cause, you know. And so we went and get the hockey players, and they were very cooperative. And I was going, oh no, if these guys can't sing this thing, I'm dead. Everybody's gonna kill me, right? We've been bragging about the fact that it's a real easy melody to sing. Well, man, we have video of Mike Bossy with his veins popping. He's singing so hard. And he later confided that he says, you know, I really want to be a singer. It was fantastic, man. These guys were singing their balls off. Can you say that?
No, you can't.
No, you can't. These guys were singing their hearts out.
Okay.
Sure you can, Ter. It's very hard to describe the feeling in the studio that day, even though all 3 of us were the 3 of the privileged ones to be there, you know. But you can't put it into words, can you? The feeling in that day. I mean, I, to a certain extent, had blinders on because I had so much work to do, you know, and you guys were working too, but you had a little more time to observe. But I just can imagine what was going on in the hall with Ronnie Hawkins talking with Lisa Del Bello and, you know, Mark Holmes taking pizza out to the fans, with Jim Valance taking pizza out to the fans outside, you know, standing outside in the freezing cold.
I do believe Bruce got really close to Anne Murray at one point, didn't you?
You know, never again, never again will I ever say anything against Anne Murray. I mean, I remember watching her go in to say, I've never met Anne Murray. We've had our feuds over the years, and we've never actually met. And she went in and sang the line with David. And the first time she hit it right off, and I remember you looking at your studio, looking at the board, and saying, now what am I going to do with that? It's perfect.
Right.
One take. You know, I looked at Leonard Rambo, our manager, and I said, is she always like this? She says, Bruce, you know the song You Needed Me? One take.
Yeah.
And she's fabulous.
The thing is, her attitude was so great because I felt, for some reason, that I should just have her sing it a few more times. She knew she had sung it right the first time, but me not being familiar with what her capabilities were and where her best and worst laid, I wanted to hear a couple more passes on the line to see whether it could be different, not necessarily good or bad. And she knew that she'd nailed it the first time, but she just said, okay, well, here we go again. Okay, here we go a 3rd time. Okay, here we go a 4th time. Finally, then she said, maybe you should just listen to that first one, you know. And I mean, but with the nicest attitude, it was like, I wish that recording could be like that all the time. But then I got to remember that I was on my best behavior too. You know, I wasn't.
Well, you're not exactly a tyrant.
Well,
it's tough on singers.
Yeah, I have been known to be tough on singers.
No.
But, well.
Okay. When will it come out? Now.
Well, David, of course, has a lot of stuff he's trying to finish up. We're trying to finish up the Payolas records. We have to fly Jim Valance. We just arranged today. Air Canada came through again to pick up the...
I didn't know that.
Pick up the airfare for Jim to go over to Hamburg to record Bruce Cockburn, because it's imperative that Bruce Cockburn be on it. He's probably one of the most concerned Canadian musicians when it comes to the human race, so he's going to be on it. And David said he's going to mix Wednesday, so we might be able to have that out in another 10 days after that.
So give us just a rough number.
Before the end of the month.
March 1st, I'd say, would be a good...
And you hope to have the video at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Gordon Lightfoot sings this. And then Burton Cummings. And then Anne Murray. And then Joni Mitchell. And then Dan Hill. And then Neil Young. And then Bryan Adams for real. And then Mike Reno from Loverboy and Liberty Silver. And then those 9 people sang the first chorus. It's hard to hear the lyrics. If we pull together
privilege it was to be in the room. When you hear this tune, you will love it. The story isn't over yet. Next week, we hope to talk to UB40 about a brand new project in which they've been involved, titled Starvation. And Geldof himself is organizing an incredible international lineup of names for a concert to take place simultaneously in England and the US of A.